As a CPA, Senator Oroho gives us his unique insights into New Jersey's politics and policies. This is the Issues Watch podcast. Hi, I'm Jeff Kazerman, Vice President of Government Relations at the New Jersey Society of CPAs, and welcome to the Issues Watch podcast. Senator Steve Oroho, the only CPA in the state legislature, is retiring this month. He rose to the position of Senate Republican leader in 2022, and he is one of the most respected and well-liked legislators in New Jersey. As a CPA who specializes in wealth management, he played a particularly prominent role in fiscal and economic issues. He served for many years as the ranking Republican on the Senate Budget Committee, where he was able to work with Democrats to pass pro-taxpayer and pro-business legislation. Perhaps the best example is the work he did to repeal New Jersey's estate tax, which, trust me, it was not easy. The NJCPA has had a very close relationship with Senator Oroho ever since he first entered the legislature in 2008. Today, I'll be talking with him about New Jersey's political climate, particularly as it impacts the business community and the economy, as well as discussing his own personal experiences in New Jersey politics. Welcome, Senator.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Great to see you.
Great to see you too. So it's no secret, obviously, you know better than anybody.
Right.
No secret that the business community in general feels New Jersey is not business friendly. And this is something I've heard to varying degrees ever since I first got into politics more than three decades ago. So what do you think are the underlying factors, not just looking at, the last 5 years, but going back 30 years, the probably longer than that. What are the underlying factors do you believe that drive either officially or unofficially, psychologically or politically, this unfriendly approach?
Well, Jeff, I think you said the key word there, politically, right? There's one thing is the perspective of going after business, and I think most people, a lot of voters, they disconnect the idea of the business and their job. A lot of
yes,
right, and quite frankly, that's why when they play the politics of let's go after the inanimate object, the business. The business doesn't vote, but yet at the same time, if you remember, President Harry S. Truman, he said, it's a recession when your neighbor loses his job. It's a depression when you lose your job. So
right.
Most people don't think about losing it or how government regulations, laws affect the ability to hire people, or if they have to get rid of people. And unfortunately, I think that's one thing that we as the business community need to do a better job. And I think a lot of businesses are concerned about letting their employees know that, hey, listen, these bad regulatory ideas that come out or the high taxes that do affect us being able to operate here in New Jersey. And, it could have an impact on your family. And I think a lot of businesses are very, don't want to, kind of give that kind of message, but it's true.
Right. And that dovetails right into my next question. One thing that has baffled me, at least for 20 years, it continues to baffle me, is why so many well-meaning progressives, liberals, whatever you want to call them, who are, have great intentions, why do they seem blind to the negative impact that anti-business policies have on job growth? And this job growth, as well as just maintaining jobs like you were talking about and having companies not go out of business, I mean, that is a fundamental bedrock of serving, the low-income residents that they are trying to help. I mean, What are they missing here? Why is there not that connection that by hurting businesses, they are actually hurting the very people they're trying to help?
Well, remember, one of the things that, Ronald Reagan had said, the best social program there is a job, right? And, the idea that we've tried to raise the earned income tax credit a lot in New Jersey and stuff is good. But I think a lot of those groups, those policy groups may have one issue and they'll just keep pounding that, particularly whether it happens to be, you know, climate change and electric vehicles or whatever. And quite frankly, they put all the emphasis on that and demonize, the business that, quite frankly, if you think about it, I talked to a class recently and I pulled out my iPhone and I said, innovation and technology, which came from businesses and obviously the employees themselves, have changed so much since I started my career that the iPhone I was holding up had more computing power than
Yes.
probably 20 desktops when I first 30 desktops when I first came out. So I do think it's easier. I used to say they do a good job of saying, let's stick it to the man, let's stick it to the man,
Yeah.
let's stick it to business. And then all of a sudden you find out, well, the man was me because I just
Yes.
lost the job, Uh,
That's
so anyway,
exactly.
yeah, and so I do think that sometimes I do wish, as I said before, I think somehow the businesses have to let their employees know that, hey, listen, we're going to go to where we're going to have the most probability of success. New Jersey has great assets. We really do. We've just overpriced them, overregulated them, over everything, and it's been difficult to do business. But I think in some respects, I think, and you know, we've made some progress, but we got so much further to go. So much further.
Right. Right. So though, as we just did, though there's been a lot of grumbling in the business community, there must be um, some positive steps the state took over the past few years. Do any come to mind? Any good things that happened?
Well, yeah, a couple come to mind. Well, first one that comes right to mind came directly from the New Jersey CPAs, and that's the business alternative income tax. Remember
Yep.
because of the tax changes that happened, I think at the federal level in
Yep.
2017 with the capping of income tax
Yep.
and the state and real estate tax deduction. Uh, the New Jersey CPA is working with myself, and I think it was Senator Sarlo as well.
Yes.
You guys came up with in a way that the businesses in New Jersey, the pass-through entities in New Jersey, the LLPs, the LLCs, the S corp stuff, could pay essentially as a corporation, right? And therefore not have to be limited in their ability to deduct their income tax because it's passed through on their individual income tax, right? So anyway, that has been, I think, a major success that came right out of the CPAs. And then also the other thing we've done is we were able to reinstitute the economic incentive plan on a bipartisan basis. I'm glad we were able to institute that. I was the primary sponsor, I think, back in the 2013 plan, and was glad to help co-sponsor this plan as well. But a lot of times, if we made our tax code more competitive, I wish we wouldn't need the incentives. I wish the incentive all the time was,
Yeah.
because let's face it, that's for something new. But we have a lot of our businesses that, quite frankly, could do a lot better by expansion, more employees, if we just had a more competitive, income tax and corporate tax code.
Yeah, and that tax incentive program, which was finally renewed, I mean, that almost didn't make it. I mean, it was the original proposals, as far as renewing it, which I think there was so much fighting going on that at first it was not renewed a few years
Right.
ago. But fortunately, it got turned around and the eventual proposals or the eventual what was adopted looks pretty good to me. So, what do you see as the big business and economic issues that the legislature will take up in 2024? Any thoughts?
I just hope I'm as far as what they take up, I just hope that everybody's talking about this, this fiscal cliff and whatnot,
Yeah,
or the structural deficit. Now, we do have, the surplus that's going forward. We do think the Senate Republicans, we had a plan to, push a lot of that money back into people. So I mean, I firmly believe you have to have a healthy fund balance, but at the same time, money back in individuals' hands or businesses' hands, generate a heck of a lot more economic activity than the government does, right? Than the state does. But I do think that one of the things we really have to go after, and Senator Sweeney and myself and Senator Sarlo and Assemblywoman Elena Pinto-Marin, and I know Senator Singleton at the time, and Senator Bucco, the late Senator Bucco and I worked on what was called the Path to Progress. Remember?
oh yeah, Ralph was on that.
Ralph was on it. Ralph did a
Yep.
good job with it, and that may have been one of the first places where we started talking about the business alternative income tax. But that's something where it goes after the cost drivers, because very rarely do you ever hear anybody talk about the cost. You got to go after some of the cost drivers. There are some ideas in there, like for example, we had the hybrid new retirement plan. Remember,
Yes.
about $40,000 in the salary would be covered under the defined benefit plan like it is now. And anything over that could be under like a 401k type of plan. And the interesting thing, Jeff, is that many of the younger employees would do so much better. Because let's say in a 401k type of plan or a defined, contribution plan, you can take that money with you, from job
Right.
to job. And, and as I said on a panel, one of the things I was on recently, everybody talks about how many more millionaires there are today, but they don't recognize the fact that one of the reasons why there are is because under a defined benefit plan, a traditional pension plan, those assets aren't the individuals. But in a 401k type plan, those assets
Ah,
are the individuals. And
I didn't know that.
and they can pass them down to their children and whatnot. So a lot of times, families can make out, significantly better. Plus the fact, a newer employee, someone who's 24 years old is going to invest a lot more differently than somebody like myself who's 65.
Right.
So I think those are things we have to look at. I also think hopefully they'll take a look at some additional changes that we keep talking about in the tax codes. And that
Right.
being the charitable contribution deduction. Because what I've tried to focus my whole career on is how do you get more capital? And I know I sound like a broken record, but how do you get more capital into New Jersey? And the one thing is, New Jersey residents are very beneficial. They give to charities, but they give it throughout the United States because it doesn't matter, if they're going to deduct it on a return. And remember, a couple of years ago, the standard deduction went up, so maybe people aren't giving as much in charities as they were before. But if they gave to a charity in New Jersey and they got a New Jersey tax deduction on their tax return, we would bring, I estimate, a couple $1 billion back into New Jersey to help our charities. And what happens every year budget? You see it all the time when we
Yeah.
have those budget hearings. Those people coming saying, "Listen, we're giving a lot of services to individuals, and we need more funding." This way,
Right.
charitable contribution, we can help bring in more money to them directly from benevolent New Jersey residents. The other thing is the retirement income. We got it up to $100,000 of tax-free retirement income from 10,000. I know Senator Sweeney
Yeah.
was a big thing when he when we did the big restructuring plan that got rid of the estate tax.
Yep.
But but I'd love to see that go to 250,000 or eliminate retirement income completely. Because if you can keep people here, particularly like I'm a grandfather, right? I got 10 grandkids.
Wow.
I love when my grandkids come here and visit the house. We go out and buy things and stuff like that, and we're paying sales tax on it and stuff. So I think the more we
Yeah.
keep our our senior citizens and grandparents here in New Jersey, I think the better off we'll be. There's a few other things that we've talked about for years. The indexation of our income tax rates.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So you are known as somebody who knows how to reach out and work with both sides and focus on things that can be done as opposed to just, talking pie in the sky, which is very important when you are in the minority party, which I guess the Senate has been controlled by Democrats almost ever since you came in, right?
Oh, I've never
Uh,
been in a majority. I've never,
okay.
I've, unfortunately.
So you are an expert in dealing with, like you said, former Senate President Steve Sweeney, who we were very close with, a pro-business Democrat, Sarlo, and others. So keeping in mind your pragmatic bent, what do you think are some pro-business initiatives that the business community should focus on in the next legislature, like areas low-hanging fruit or things, where you think a Democratic majority might hop on board? Any
Well,
such things out there?
yeah, recently on a panel we talked, and I do think it's important about government efficiency and regulatory review. We work
Okay.
with New Jersey Business and Industry. We work with the New Jersey CPA Society, Commerce and Industry, and the trade as well. And that's something that when it used to be called the red tape review.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
And
remember that.
now, when you change administrations, they don't want to have the same name as another. So we actually changed it to the we called it GEAR, but it was Government Efficiency and Regulatory Review. And I think that's something that's critically
Yeah,
important because whatever, and it's not necessarily that, hey, listen, we gotta get rid of a lot of different things. A lot of things just have been on there for a long
yeah,
time, but frankly don't make any sense anymore. Um,
right.
and I think when the governor absolutely vetoed it, there was only one person who voted against it.
Let's move on to some of your personal experience as a lawmaker, what it's like being a lawmaker, and also, how you became to be a CPA and what's that like. So let's start with the CPA. What drew you to accounting? I mean, did you wake up when you were in second grade and say, I want to be a CPA?
No, it was interesting. I went to school. My brother at the time was going to St. Francis College. It's now St. Francis University in Loretto, Pennsylvania. I went up. I was always good. Listen, I figured I was always good in math, but
Okay.
he said, "Oh, let me, I'll try the accounting." And I was also interested at the time, and I never, and I didn't go down this path. But at the time, I was interested to be in, maybe looking at the FBI. And the
Oh,
FBI
yep,
and the FBI hires a lot of accountants,
yep.
lawyers, and stuff like that. As it turns out, when I graduated, I got offered a job from Price Waterhouse, before it was Price Waterhouse Coopers. I got offered from Price Waterhouse in New York City, so I took it. And I figured then, as far as the CPA, and that if I wanted to, I wanted to be one of the best. So being one of the best is CPA. Was a hard test, and
Yeah.
studied hard, and quite frankly, it helped my career in many different ways. And I do think it's interesting. My three of my children took accounting, and they all said that, Dad, we're not going to be accountants or anything like this. And I said, listen, you don't have to be accountants. However, just take a look to see. First of all, if you're going to go to college, you're going to go to college to get a job, not to find yourself, because I know where you are. You're right in front of me.
You know where you are. You're right there.
You're right there. You're right here. So, but I said, it's interesting if you study accounting or finance, there's so many different things you can do. And quite frankly, my two oldest children became CPAs, and they're
Well, they
doing
did.
very well. Yeah, they did. And then the other thing is my youngest son, who took accounting, became did ROTC. and eventually went through Ranger School.
Wow.
And so he has his accounting, degree as well. And my other two children, one was a civil engineer, one is a civil engineer doing extremely well, and a doctor of pharmacy doing very well. But three of them ended up taking accounting because they recognize that, it's not just, bookkeeping. There's, I like the idea of investigating things. And they
Right.
they saw the same thing.
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, I'm not a CPA, but I did take accounting 1 and 2, and I am really happy that I did. So moving on to another personal experience area. How did you wind up in politics? I'm sure you didn't wake up in second grade and say, "Hey, you know what? I want to run for office." I know that didn't happen.
No, it certainly did not. I had no intention in getting into politics whatsoever. I guess we could say it was by accident, but I will tell
Okay.
you, being in finance and having an accounting degree certainly did help a lot.
Yep.
Because no matter if when I got onto they asked me to be on my local economic development board, right? And then when I got to see there how much influence the council and the mayors had, I eventually ran for council. I won, and then and everywhere I've been, whether it be on the local council, on the freeholder board when they called it freeholders at the time, and then in the Senate, I was always one of the only or one of the only accountants or CPAs
Yes.
on it. So I was always asked to be on the finance committee or the budget committee or something.
Yep.
And so anyway, but I never planned. I didn't go for political science. I was fortunate enough, my chief of staff, Jeff Spatoli, you've known him for
Yep.
years. I was very fortunate to have somebody that had his professional qualifications. He did go to school for political science, understood and taught me a lot of the strategies and how government worked. And I tell you, Jeff, that's one of the best things is being in the elected office is I learn new things all the time.
Yep. That's how I feel as a lobbyist. That's when people ask me, "So why do you like your job?" I say, "Well, one of the primary reasons is every day, every week, I'm learning new things and meeting new people, opportunities you just don't get, elsewhere." Do you have any advice for CPAs who are thinking about going into politics?
Yeah, it's interesting. People said, did you plan, and, similar to that question before, did you plan to go into politics? I said, no, throughout my whole career, I did more praying than planning. I just, I just worked hard. What I did is I worked hard, I prayed, and things, worked out. I tell, as you know, I used to coach high school football and baseball and stuff like this. And I would tell my players, remember the saying, the harder you work, the luckier you get. People will always
That's
say,
very true.
people will always say to you, boy, you're very lucky, but they don't see all the hard work that went into it. And when it starts to bring benefits, obviously it feels good. But what I would tell the CPAs and stuff is that, hey, listen, they need you. They really do.
Yeah.
I'm the only CPA in the legislature today, right? Quite frankly, they need more people who have, accounting backgrounds, finance backgrounds, economic backgrounds, that sort of thing.
Right. Actually, there was an assemblyman, a newly elected assemblyman who's the mayor of Boonton Township, who's a CPA, who
Oh,
just
really?
got elected. Yeah. Um,
Excellent.
I forget his name. And he's an NJCPA member. So let's look at one last thing. As you know well, there's a pipeline problem in the profession. Big, big problem. There are not nearly enough students are going into accounting to make up for the rapid retirement of baby boomers. Do you have any thoughts on what we, the society, CPAs in general, can do to address that? Any thoughts?
I do. And that's where, the one thing I think the perception is it's bookkeeping, or it's that, and it's not. It's
No.
so, the thing that you can branch out into, and I think that's one of the things that the multiple pathways that you can have I mean, just thinking about just understanding how financial statements work or understanding finance. Um, it's just, there's so many different career paths that you can take. Heck, I know lawyers who had their who's now an excellent estate attorney, started, in accounting as well. It just
That's
a very good understanding of so many different things that, and I think it gives you a lot more opportunities for success. And I think we have to be able to explain that, hey, if you have an opportunity, this is more opportunity for success in many different pathways that you can take. And it's not boring at all.
right. Well, thank you for joining us, Senator. As always, it's been a pleasure. I always enjoy talking to you, and I'm sure I will see you more in the
Well, Jeff,
future.
it's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for listening and watching. For more information about legislation the NJCPA is supporting and opposing, visit njcpa.org/advocacy. Lastly, be sure to support the New Jersey CPA Political Action Committee, the only nonpartisan group in New Jersey dedicated solely to fighting for CPAs in the legislative arena. Learn more and contribute at njcpa.org/PAC.